Hey everybody, Michael Davis here. Welcome to Bone2Pick. We're coming to you today from our familiar surroundings here at Carol's Studio on West 55th Street in New York City. Before we get the interview started, just wanted to give you a heads up on a couple of things that are on the horizon for hip bone music. I'm really excited to announce that we're going to be doing a reissue of the Brass Nation CD, a 20th anniversary reissue. The original CD was recorded in 2000 and it features 55 of the world's finest brass players, including the Chicago Symphony Brass Section, the principal brass of the New York Philharmonic, Jerry Hay and his unbelievable LA section, as well as various New York luminaries, Randy Brecker, Tim Hagens, Scott Wenholt, Greg Gibbsburg. We're also going to be recording a couple bonus tracks for that. We're hoping to do that at the beginning of the summer and then release the anniversary special edition at the end of August. So keep an eye out for that one. I'm also really excited to announce that we're adding a concert band series to the Hip Bone Music catalog. Three really wonderful arrangers are working as we speak on three of my compositions, and we're going to debut those at a concert in Evansville, Indiana with the Evansville Symphonic Band in June, and then right after that they'll be available on the Hip Bone Music website, so we'll keep you posted. As always, want to thank you right up front for your support of Hip Bone Music. Keep liking us on Facebook and on YouTube, sharing it with your friends. We can't do it without you, so we really appreciate all the support as always. All right, without further ado, I have been looking forward to this one for months. These are, the best way I can put it, two of the finest trumpet players anywhere in the world. They happen to be here in New York City, and I am honored whenever I get to play with them, and I'm honored that they're here today. The great Raul Agraz and Maneco Ruiz are with us as our Artists of the Month. And let me give you a quick introduction for each gentleman. Raul hails from Caracas, Venezuela, where he had crafted a very successful career as a trumpet player there. He moved to New York in 1996. And quickly became one of the most in-demand players in town. He's one of those rare individuals, as they both are, comfortable in any musical situation. If he's playing in a symphony orchestra, if he's playing Afro-Cuban music, if he's playing jazz, if he's playing a Broadway show. And right now, speaking of that, he is holding the trumpet chair at the mega hit Book of Mormon. He's held that position since the show opened in, I think it was 2011. Mm-hmm. And before that, he was on another big Broadway hit, In the Heights. His recording and performance credits reads like a who's who of the music business, and in particular the Latin music world. Mark Anthony, Jennifer Lopez, Audra McDonald, the Venezuela Philharmonic, Billy Joel, Ruben Blades, Herb Alpert, Arturo Sandoval, Michelle Camilo, Tito Puente, Eddie Palmieri, and I can assure you that's just a partial list. He's also achieved a lot of success as a solo artist. He released his first CD, Between Brothers, and immediately received a Latin Grammy nomination. Our other featured artist this month, Maneco Ruiz, is one of my favorite people and one of my favorite players. I get to work with him almost every day of the week when we're both in. We both are doing the Broadway hit Moulin Rouge. It's always just makes our life so much easier when Maneco is there to lead us in the section. Maneco hails from Ponce, Puerto Rico. Comes from an extremely musical family. His father's a trumpet player, his uncle's a trumpet player, his brother's a trumpet player, and I think he's probably the shining star of the family. But you'll never get him to admit that. I can assure you. I could describe I could describe him as a disciple and a star student of the late great Prof Fielder, who for many decades taught trumpet at Rutgers University and had an incredible number of students who studied with him. Wynton Marsalis, Freddie Hubbard, Marcus Printup, the list goes on and on. As I mentioned, he's holding down the trumpet chair at Moulin Rouge. He also has an extensive resume in the Broadway world. Before that, did Rocktopia, On Your Feet, more recently the Cher Show. He's a member of the Spanish Harlem Jazz Orchestra. He's, again, just like his colleague Raul, he has an impressive list of artists that he's worked for. That's include Arturo O'Farrell's Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra, Gloria Estefan, Boston Brass, the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra, Jennifer Lopez, Mark Anthony, also Eddie Palmieri, Luis Enrique, Ruben Blades. Gentlemen, I'm sorry for the long introduction, but so glad you're here, and I can't wait to talk about your guys' extraordinary careers and lives in music.
That was a hell of an introduction. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for being here. You know what? Let's start off and introduce our audience to what it was like growing up. As I mentioned, you're from Venezuela, you're from Puerto Rico, so why don't we start with you, Raul? Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Venezuela, how you got into music, and what drew you to the trumpet.
Well, I started very early year on. I mean, when I was 7 years old, I was in my third grade, and I grew up in a very small town in Venezuela, Villa de Cura, which is about 2.5 hours from Caracas. Almost 3 hours. And this town is very famous because they have a choir, a very famous choir, and well known around the world. So, and they used to go to every elementary school and get the best students and to sing in this particular choir. And I was one of them. And what they used to do, that they used to write a letter to the parent, and I remember when I gave it that to my mother. She said she was very happy because that back then was a big deal, getting picked by this choir, and that's how it started. And I remember when I was about 8 years old, this choir, the leader of this choir, they start to build a school, a musical school. So, and I, having started with them since I started when I turned 7 years old, I just continued singing with them, but at the same time they starting to introduce to every singer, every student in the choir, to a particular instrument. So, and I remember that they teach you first with a recorder, B-flat recorder, how to read the music, how to learn music, and then when you finish like a 5 or 6 lesson, then you have to pick up the instrument that you really want to play. And I remember that I picked up the trumpet, but they didn't have a trumpet back then, so they have a French horn. So that was basically my first instrument when I started with the student, basically music with them. So after a couple of years, they introduced me to a new trumpet player who's coming to teach in the school, and they found a trumpet for me. So that's basically how I started with the trumpet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank God they got you a trumpet.
No
offense to the French horn players, but we need you playing trumpet.
Correct. And I'm a big fan of really good French horn players.
Of course.
That's an instrument that I really love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Maneco, I can't wait to hear the dynamic between your family members that are growing up.
So as you said in your intro, I'm from Ponce, Puerto Rico. My family, they all play trumpet. And we have a system, a music system, school system in Puerto Rico, close, very, very similar to Venezuela. It's like a conservatory for kids called Escuela Libre de Música. And it just so happened that my dad was a theory teacher there and trumpet teacher. So in Puerto Rico, on my hometown Ponce, when you're like 8, then you're able to go to that school after your academic school. So I went there. We started, the semester starts in August. You have to reach certain lesson on the theory book to get the instrument. So of that year, I was the first one to get to that lesson. I remember my teacher went to my dad, which was next door, and said, well, your kid is already on the lesson. Let's get him an instrument. So they asked me, what do you want to play? I said, I want to play sax. There was no space, there was no spots open in sax. So they said, what else do you want to play? I want to play trombone. There was no space either on that one. Well, anyway, to make the story shorter, the only space available was on trumpet. So I said, all right, I'll play trumpet. And that was it.
That's awesome. So your dad actually wasn't encouraging you to
I
play
think it was a
trumpet, or
setup.
maybe- Oh, it was a setup.
I think
okay.
it was a setup. Yeah.
Well, I think that was
Yeah,
our
it was
destiny as well.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I for one am glad you both ended up on trumpet. So
Yeah, well.
that's awesome. You know, before I want to talk about the move to New York and what it's like for somebody coming from the Caribbean or from South America to make that, to have the courage to come to New York, because even for somebody like me coming from California, it takes a lot of courage to make a move to a place like New York. Before we do, can you guys each describe to me, to us, what the scene is like for a professional musician in your country, or in this case in Puerto Rico? And maybe, I mean, I'm sure it's different now than when you were there, but I know that, you know, you've talked about it too, and Caracas had a pretty thriving scene. But what was it, before we talk about the move to New York, what was it like, you know, looking at the possibility of being a professional, or in your case, you were a professional in Venezuela? What was that like?
Well, I was involved in classical music since my 10 years to probably 19 years. I was pretty much all academic, you know, legit, how they call it here, trumpet playing. But at the same time, in my small town, I was playing also with different, you know, popular music. My father used to be a singer, and I remember that I used to go to every rehearsal with him and sit down behind the trumpet players and trying to figure it out what they were playing. Mm-hmm. So when I finally moved to Caracas, probably on my 17, 18 years old, I started working right away, because my teacher back then, he asked me to go to the Venevisión, which is a big TV channel, and back then all those three very important TV channels, they used to have orchestras, and he asked me to go and sing for him, and I went one day, and they called me to do the Miss Venezuela, which is a very important, you know, tradition in Venezuela. It's a big deal to be part of this musical. It's basically a musical. Mm-hmm. So I started recording with them, with the orchestra, and then pretty much after that, I started working with everybody else in Venezuela. I got called to do many jingles. That was basically my income back then, and TV shows or recording for a new movie or commercial for a new for another country. Sometimes many producers went to Venezuela to record a jingle for a specific product for Ecuador or Colombia or Peru. You know, they used to go to Venezuela to record.
Venezuela is the hub for that involves South
to do
America.
the whole thing. And the same happened when I don't know now, probably now it's not happening anymore, but back then there are many artists, they used to go to Venezuela and put together the orchestra to like a base to tour from Venezuela. People from Spain, people from Colombia or Ecuador or Santo Domingo or Puerto Rico, they put the singer come and put the band together in Venezuela, and then we do like a tour for the whole South America. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So I did that with Julio Iglesias, Rafael, Rocío Dúrcal, Isabel Pantoja, the big names in Spain, you know, big names in Colombia, and of course the locals from Venezuela as well.
Interesting. Okay. So Venice, I mean, it's a country as opposed to a city like New York or Los Angeles, but Venezuela sounds like a center.
It was
like
huge.
New York
Yeah,
is,
it was a huge. Exactly.
Wow.
Everybody used to go there and put the band together, you know, and from there start, you know, touring.
Wow, interesting. Maneco, how about Puerto Rico? And I know it's probably changed, you know, even in the last decade or so.
Just
but for
like
you.
New York, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, in my hometown, Ponce, back then in the mid-90s, there was a few salsa bands that I started playing with them, thanks to my father, of course, you know, recommended me and my brother. Then in 97, I moved to San Juan, which is the capital of Puerto Rico. where the Conservatory of Music is, to study there. And my brother was already established in San Juan, so he was playing with Elias Lopez, which for me is like the greatest lead trumpet from Puerto Rico. And he started taking me to the rehearsals, and then my brother left the band, and Elias called me for the band, and then he started recommending me with a lot of people, So it was me and him playing a lot of gigs, and then with big names, which, it's not important right now. So anyways, there was, in Puerto Rico, we have a thing that every town, there's 78 towns, they have these festivities called Fiestas Patronales, and it goes for 10 days. Back then it was like that. Now, because of government issues, which is not important either.
Actually,
so now it went down to like 3 days, 4 days. So you can imagine how many gigs you could get, playing in every town every week, So it's still like that a little bit, You play 3-4 gigs if you're good,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like that, you could be at home on a Thursday and all of a sudden you have 3 gigs for the weekend, and all great musicians. In Puerto Rico, there's a great school of trumpets, trumpet players, amazing teachers. And
trumpets and trombones players.
It's basically like this, like here. Over the years, the work is, becoming less and less and less,
It's great for us to realize too, as especially for Americans, but in more specifically like New York or Los Angeles, you end up getting this kind of like, myopic's a little strong, but you get this kind of centered viewpoint of, oh wow, but this like these thriving scenes exist, or like you're saying, it's less now, but important work is being done, in Venezuela and Puerto Rico, and it's a parallel to what's going on, in a place like New York or Los Angeles.
Yeah, one of the great things about our countries, is that over there you have to play any style.
Any style.
You have to play, salsa, jazz, classical. You play salsa during the day, and then you go play Mahler
I remember
at night.
that, talking about that, I wasn't a really Latin player, salsa player, being in Venezuela. I was playing with everybody, every kind of style. I started playing more salsa when I moved to New York.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
And recording, more Latin music when I moved to New York.
Yeah.
So that's something that in Venezuela we used to do, cover everything. Yeah.
Like I said, like I said in the intro too, like both of these gentlemen, like for those of you who are learning more about them right now, are stellar, legit players, classical players, and I can attest to it firsthand. And having played with them, and they have their all of that aspect of playing the brass instrument is completely together. So it's a good lesson for us to all strive for that. Let's talk about the move to the United States. Maybe Manny, we'll start with you on this one. And I know having especially for you guys who both were successful in your countries, and you could easily have just stayed there. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the emotions of it and what made you decide to move to the U.S., and maybe share a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the time in New York more specifically, but what was those initial thoughts about moving to the U.S.?
Well, I wanted to do my master's in trumpet, so I first tried in 2002. I went to University of Illinois, and my teacher there was the great Ronald Ron, who used to play with the Canadian brass. It was great, but it was so cold that after 4 months I said, you know what, I'm going back to Puerto Rico. So I went back to Puerto Rico, spent a year, and then I saw a prof on a video that there's the making of this city of Wynton Marsalis and Catherine Battle, and I saw Prof on that video, and I was like, man, I want to study with that guy. So I went to Rutgers just to study with him. Then I didn't play any gigs for the first year and like 2 months because nobody knew who I was. So I came from working a lot in Puerto Rico to nothing. So there was a time that, you get depressed. Oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? So then one day, this friend of mine from Puerto Rico calls me and he says, I got a friend that needs a lead trumpet on a salsa band. So it just so happened that guy was running all the clubs in Queens. Remember the Freddie?
Yeah.
So I went from 0 to playing like 20 gigs a month with that guy. It was crazy. And then little by little, you meet people, like this guy, and they recommend you for other gigs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raul, you shared a little bit before we started the interview, but tell us about what inspired you to come to the U.S.
Back in 1985, I got called to do an album for a well-known salsa singer. His name is Oscar de Leon. It's well-known around the world. It's like the Celia Cruz, but in this case, it's Oscar de Leon. That's a comparison that I can't make right now. So, and I did the album for him, and I got called for a producer, and then I did the album for him. And he was in the studio, so he asked me because he was in need for a trumpet player for his band. I said, man, I'm looking for a trumpet player. Were you interested on tour? I said, yeah, let's try. And I started with him in late 84, and from 84 to 89, traveling with him around the world. And getting to know, every time I go, we come to New York, I remember, we used to play like 60 gigs in a month. It was, back then was a lot of work, and in many clubs, that's how he said, And back in 1992, I quit the band, and I started playing with the Philharmonic because my teacher was playing with the Philharmonic, and he really wanted me to do the audition to play with the Philharmonic. So I started playing with the Philharmonic, and I continued doing the same work, that I was doing before I was traveling with Oscar. So in 1994, when the whole political situation started to change in Venezuela, me and my wife was telling, you know what, this is gonna change. Back then I used to have so many Cubans, musician friends in Venezuela, living in Venezuela. They told me this is not gonna change. It's gonna be the same as Cuba. So, and I talked to my wife, and I said, you know what, we should think about to move to somewhere else. I got offered to move to Spain. I got offered to go to Curacao, Colombia, but I always thought to, I don't know, I want to improve myself. I want to do something better. So, and I took the decision to move to New York. And I just make a couple of phone calls because I make good friends when in my stay with Oscar de Leon, a good producers, phone calls. And as soon as I arrived to New York in 1996, the same day that I arrived from the airport, they picked me up and they brought me to the recording studio. So that's how I started. I recorded,
totally different than me. It took a year and 2 months.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I consider myself very lucky because from there, I never stopped working. Because I did the first recording, it became a hit in the radio, so everybody wants to use me, And I remember that I made really bad enemies like Piro. Back then, he was a good Puerto Rican, amazing trumpet player, but everybody started calling me, and I said, but that's not my fault. Everybody's giving my number to this person, but it was a few, moments that we got some issues, but we're really good friends now. So
yeah, that's good.
So it never stopped from them. So thank God I've been lucky, and that's how I started.
I don't think it's luck, but but how dare you sound that good that people want to call you? That's a lot of nerve coming here with that. Well, it kind of goes right into my next thoughts about it. But when you look back on it, you kind of just answered it. But are there maybe there's some other ones that you look at as kind of pivotal moments that really helped kind of catapult you in terms of your New York career and the stature that both of you guys have? I mean, I think I met you first, maybe before that, but maybe on In the Heights, I know for sure. I think we knew each other a little bit before then, but you were already super established by that point. So it just kind of shows how, people are living in this big city, and you may or may not intersect with somebody, even though you're doing the same a lot of the same type of work. But anyway, are there any couple of other things that jump out at you as like, wow, that was a super important gig or connection or something?
Well, playing Latin music, I have the opportunity to meet many young musicians, American musicians, in playing in the same Latin bands, and I got the opportunity to meet, for example, Kevin Bryant, and that's how he asked me, as I play with him many times, he asked me to come and suffer him in at the Full Monty. That's the show that he was playing. So that was pretty much the beginning of my, when I started serving in musicals in Broadway. And I get to know producers, get to know the contractor and other musicians in this scene. So that's pretty much what happened to me. So.
How about you, Maneco? I mean, we've talked about it a lot privately, but
well, it's hard to go from like salsa. I was doing, mostly salsa gigs and classical gigs, but small, chamber groups and all that stuff. But then he called me to sub at
In the Heights.
In the Heights when he was off Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then he moved to Celia's show. Remember that show? Off Broadway too. Then John Walsh, the great John Walsh, started calling me to sub on your previous show too, the Memphis.
Yeah.
And then I started playing with the Spanish Harlem Orchestra, and they were gonna do this production of Gloria Estefan on Broadway and all that stuff, and they called Oscar Hernandez, which is the musical director for the Spanish Harlem Orchestra, and he recommended me for the job for the Broadway show, On Your Feet, and that's how it started. Him, Walsh, Oscar Hernandez.
How would you guys say, in terms of the Latin scene in New York, which has always been a thriving parallel scene to Broadway or mainstream recording or whatever, how would you say it's changed over the last 10 years? I'm sure it's similar to everything else that's less, but would you say that it's still...
This is pretty much known, actually, the Latin scene in New York right now. There's a few bands still playing, few leaders are still, putting the band together. But I remember when I moved from Venezuela, I used to do like 7 gigs a day. Every day, I didn't have any day off. And not only playing with different bands and different singers, recording dates as well. So, but I'm talking about 90, 96, 97, 98, from then. In 2001, everything started changing. Totally. So there's still a couple of leaders still, trying to make a living in the Latin scene, but it's not the same. Definitely not the same.
You'd agree with that, Maneco?
Well, yeah, it's been really hard for Latin music in New York, As you know, all these buildings in Times Square where there used to be a lot of Latin clubs. It's too expensive for them to put a club. Like, for example, Copacabana is still there, but they don't have enough money to pay a band. So they bring a band like once a month or twice a month, and they don't want to pay the musicians like fairly, So, there's a few clubs in Queens, but they don't bring bands all the time either. So now, when I started playing gigs...
Back then there were so many clubs open, and I mean, as I say, you're playing a week, in the same club, sometimes 3 times a week, with different singers, different bands. So, and not only that, not only here in New York, there were so many clubs in New Jersey as well, and we used to go back then. I mean, sometimes we play a gig here, go to New Jersey, and then play in New Jersey another gig, and then come back to Queens to play another gig in Queens. So by the time you end, it was already 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning. So,
Yeah, I think it's always interesting. I think wherever you go, every city that you go to, London, Chicago, Nashville, Los Angeles,
the same,
we're all kind of in that same situation of now we're having to, as musicians, try to create something, like yourself doing your records. I know Manny's we've talked about a project that you're doing coming up. I have my projects, and I think it becomes imperative for us as musicians to be proactive, and in a way it's disheartening to see the work pool shrink the way it has, and another way it's creating a different mindset that we have to kind of adapt to. And even though you have tremendous notoriety in the Latin music, both of you in the Latin music world, you have your Grammy nominated record for the Latin Grammys. That's pretty, you probably wouldn't have had that if it weren't, motivated and pushed into having to think about things on that level. So as always, there's kind of a yin and yang, I think, with everything. Let's talk a little bit more about the Broadway situation, which we all share that now, and thankfully it looks like, there's no question you're on a big hit show. It looks like Maneco and I are on what hopefully is going to be somewhat of a long-running hit show. One thing that I find, we're going to talk about it a lot in the lesson, the Hip on You lesson we do with Raul. Tell me about your approach, because you've sat on 2 long-running hit shows. Within the Heights ran 4 years. Was that what you guys ran?
4 years. Yeah.
4 years, and now on Book of Mormon, you're starting your 10th year or something like that.
9 years.
9 years. Okay. So, how do you approach? That's our downside to playing a Broadway show. It's the exact same thing every day. So you want to do a great job. You want to keep a good attitude. You want to keep a good approach. Tell me how because you are one of the best guys in town, and you always make it very comfortable. When I've subbed at Book of Mormon, you make everybody feel comfortable, which is a really nice thing.
Yeah.
How do you approach having a full-time, long-running show like that?
Well, I had the opportunity to sub before those long runs in good shows that I have the same attitude for another musician. We're very positive with me, really helped me at the same time. And my approach is to be, is trying to be as much as professional as I can, be on time all the time, trying to be prepared, trying to be warm up at the time you're gonna play the first note, and be friendly with everybody. Trying to get to know every contractor, every musician, every new sub to come to the show, trying to give it the best welcome, because sometimes when a sub coming for the first time to the show, they nervous, they don't know what's gonna happen. As you know, you're subbing so many shows, the same with you, and that's basically the most important thing that I try to do for a new person who's coming to play the show for the first time. And then after the third time, if he's not doing a good job, then I start to, say, okay,
the hammer comes down. Well, I cannot say that, the couple times you've pointed stuff out to me when I've played on your shows, you always do it in such a professional way that you make it feel like you want to help them get it better, definitely. Not you're at fault.
If you play well, of course, I'm going to be more comfortable. That's what I want. I want everybody to come to play to the show, to feel comfortable, that then I don't have to think about anything. I just have to think to play my show and try to make the best I can, every day.
Maneco, I'm sure you echo that.
Of course. Well, he covered the environmental situation on a pit, which is great. Now as a player, but here is a little different. Our shows we have to play piccolo.
Yeah.
And that it messes with your chops a little bit. So I always try to keep my chops fresh. Like I warm up at the house. On my way back from the show, I try to, as much as I can, just to keep it fresh. And then with the music per se, just be as clear as I can so that people can follow,
Yeah, the same. I'm trying to sleep well now that I'm not playing at night anymore like we used to do. Sometimes we still doing that, but not as often as we want, you know. And trying to trying to warm up as early as I can. Get up early and try to warm up a little bit, and then in my car trying to bust my mouthpiece and trying to get to the theater like 50 or 20 minutes before downbeat and trying to play a little bit. And the warm down is very important after every show. You know?
Yeah, Maneco, you touched on something that I think is super important, and I know for myself, I can get lazy about it, you know, when I'm doing a show that I know, and like, okay, I don't have to practice today because I'll get some maintenance at the show.
Yeah.
And you can get away with that a little bit, but I think you're absolutely, when you said, you know, you got to keep things somewhat fresh. I know even I keep my old etude books from when I was in college, and I'll go back through, well, I got to play through some of this, and it's not pleasant. I wouldn't want to be listening.
Yeah.
You know,
I
also-
wouldn't want to be listening to me, but it you know, miraculously the next day it feels much better.
But you know, I think it's especially when you play other gigs, and then but you haven't done that in a long time, like a few weeks, that you're just playing the show, and all of a sudden you take a big band gig that's very, you know, heavy for the lead trumpet,
And you don't have endurance.
and then you go back to the show after that, you're like, oh my God, what happened? You know, like a Mack truck, you know. So that's why you have to, you know.
That happened to me right now. I'm playing with the Berlin Big Band. I'm a member of the band, and that's a chair that we shared the lead book. John Walsh and me. But sometimes John is not there, so and I have to lead the band.
Play the whole book.
And that's a hard book. Sometimes I have to play that book and all the sharp because they called the second trumpet player who's not playing lead. So, and then I have to go back to play my show, and my show has the particularity, the very opening of the show is with a piccolo trumpet. So, so I have to be careful how much I'm gonna play that night at Berlin, and how I'm gonna pace myself to not hurt my chops to play the piccolo on my show. So that's something very important too.
Yeah, understanding the pacing. And you know, I just want to take one step back because both of these gentlemen are such pros at it. But for those of you who don't know, on the New York Broadway scene, when you come into sub for the first time, there is a lot of pressure. The expectation is that you're going to sound just like the regular, and that's a tall task, especially when you're filling in for these gentlemen. And I just think it's especially worth noting that when somebody takes the time to make the subs feel comfortable, because a lot of times the conductor may or may not do that. They might, but they might not, and you kind of feel a little bit isolated. And when you have somebody like who's going to play as good as you guys do, and then also just a friendly word here or there, whatever, it really makes a big difference. So that's kind of where we were going with it. For those of you who don't know about what it's like subbing on Broadway shows in New York, and I'm sure it exists in other cities as well in terms of subbing. Let's talk about the music part right now, which is perhaps a little more fun than the business part. You guys both have this phenomenal approach to playing lead trumpet, and we've talked about it at great length. Tell me about your approach. For instance, this last week, we all three of us were on sessions for the movie In the Heights, and Raul played lead trumpet on it. Maneco played second trumpet. Great brass section and wonderful writer and producer Alex Lacamora. Tell me about your approach to playing lead. I want to get the same question to Maneco, because both of you guys, I know as a trombone player, we're always trying to match you guys. You're super consistent. In Maneco, I don't think I even asked him 2 questions in all of Moulin Rouge. I just listened to what he's doing and do that, and it sounds good, you know. Yeah. So tell me about, if you can, put it into words, how you approach playing lead trumpet.
Well, the way that I approach is not as a lead trumpet player. I in general, as a trumpet player. I'm not a lead trumpet player, as a trumpet player. And what I try to put together is time, sound, intonation, get along with everybody else, you know, and being lucky to many times playing with him or Tony Cutler or Nick Marchon, and really good musicians that they made you feel comfortable every time you play. So in any given situation, if you by any chance the producer of this tune wants you to play the lead trumpet, the way that I approach is just to be ready as a trumpet player to play that lead part that they just put in front of me. It happens also when you have to play the second trumpet or the third trumpet or the fifth trumpet. So it's more for me like to be ready as a trumpet player, how to approach every part of the music that they, in any given situation, you happen to give it to you. So that's how I see my approach to play lead trumpet. Of course, trying to pace myself as much as I can, if I'm playing the lead trumpet, and trying to delegate if there's a unison line that I know and I'm gonna be playing high and this and the second trumpet has the same line, I'm gonna let the second trumpet to play that, and then for me that's another way to pace yourself. You don't have to be the macho man and try to play the whole line and be the
super lead.
The super lead. No, it's not trying to play in a team. Trying to be a team player.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I see it.
Yeah.
I don't see the lead trumpet player like there is some amazing lead trumpet player that they got called to do only that, But at the same time, not all of them can play probably a fourth trumpet or third trumpet, So I like to see myself as a trumpet player. That most of the time I get called to play lead, but I'm also ready to play any part in the band.
Yeah, for sure. Maneco, I know Prof had a lot of influence on you in your approach. How does that carry over into the...
Prof was more of an influence on tone production, stuff like that. But it was Elias Lopez in Puerto Rico. When I started playing with him, he was so good that I started imitating him. That's how we learn, right? We imitate other people. So I started asking a lot of questions like, where did you get that? Stuff like that. He used to play with a salsa band called El Gran Combo, which is like one of the biggest salsa bands ever in the 60s. So he used to come to New York and he used to take lessons with all these great lead trumpets from New York in the 60s. So he started, passing me those, learning experiences that he got back then. And one of the things was like, for example, playing lead, your rhythm has to be perfect in order for others to follow you. Intonation, like he said, he mentioned everything, so I'm just... Then one of the things that he mentioned to me, which for me was genius, back then, now it's something normal for people. If you're the lead, you have to make the section sound good no matter what. If it means that you have to play out of tune in order to be in tune with others, you're the lead. You're in charge of making this sound good.
Right.
And it happens to me many times. I'm sure it happened to you.
Yeah.
Playing like, for example, high E, and the other trumpet player is flat or sharp or whatever, and you, after a few seconds, you notice that they're not going to adjust to you, so you just adjust to them and make them sound good. So that's my approach. Like, for example, in our show, there's a few sections, I don't know if you noticed that, but now that we're here, I'm going to share that with you, that I feel like there's a few lines that I feel like the trombone should lead the section. So I back down a little bit, put a little softer, and then I follow you for those few bars. That's how, I think it should be, Find a way to make things sound good.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys touched on it in different ways, but it's like you approach it as musicians. You're not lead trumpet, I'm the boss. You're approaching it, and you, like Maneco just said, sometimes if you're playing lead, you have to make the section sound good, and you guys, there's no question you guys do that.
A lead trumpet player, the work of a lead trumpet player is trying to playing the same always and try to make everybody to feel comfortable playing that way. If you're gonna play the line the same way every time you play in the line, so that everybody gets to know that you're gonna play that way. So in some cases, you know, you in many situations, I play with some other cats that they just play the line and they play different every time you play, you know, the same.
You can't follow
and you
like
can't
that.
follow that. So
Yeah.
that's
The consistency is
the consistency
vital.
is not the same. It's vital.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But talking about Latin playing in particular, and I'm sure, I know when I go on a Latin gig, especially with Latin players, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to try to like listen as best as I can to the pros and see if I can just try to match what's going on. It's a little bit of a left-footed question, but what do you find are common challenges that, you know, I don't want to say white players, but since I'm white, I can get away with it. But let's say non-Latin players that come in to play Latin music that maybe that's not, you know, where they feel the most comfortable. What kind of challenges do you find most of the time, and what do you, you know, what recommendations would you make to players that are maybe outside of that world of that kind of that style of music?
Can I jump in? Listen to the conga. That's it.
Listen to the conga. Okay.
Listen to the conga. Get recordings with a lot of conga. You know, then you know, follow the Latin players. You know, trumpet players, whatever. But if you don't listen to the rhythm section, especially the conga, for me, that's what gives you that swinging, you know, style of the Latin music. That's the most important thing for me.
It's like to be playing a big band. If you're playing the lead, you're gonna follow the drummer. If the drummer is not doing his job, it makes also your life miserable that night, you know, or that day.
Right.
So that happened also with the conga player.
I mean, there's a lot of books how to play salsa. And then it comes with a sample that you play on, you know, a play along.
Right.
And then, but the percussion is fake, you know. So you should if you want to play salsa, go to a club.
Go to a club.
See, you know, watch a band, you know, pay attention, not only to your instrument, in this case, our trumpet, you know,
and
but
listen a lot of,
pay attention to the rhythm section.
Listen a lot of music, but it's very important also as well.
Yeah. That's a great lesson. How much do I owe you for that? I never heard it put so succinctly, though. Follow the conga. It's like,
follow the conga. That's it.
Where have you been all my life?
That's your click. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That is the
That's
click.
a metronome.
Right?
That's a metronome. Yeah.
That's it. This is a kind of straddling the business thing. Do you guys find now, because I know you go back to your countries occasionally, and do you find that your success that you've had in New York has helped you internationally and in your home countries in terms of profile, in terms of work, in terms of opportunities that you wouldn't have gotten if you had not come to New York?
Oh yeah, definitely it helps. Especially when I recorded my last my album as a leader, that helped me. Everybody was, when I announced that I was recording my solo album. There were so many people calling me from Peru for interviews, for Puerto Rico. I made an interview for, I forgot his name. He's gonna kill me.
Oh, God.
Well, I may remember from Peru and from Venezuela. So yeah, definitely my stay, being here in New York, definitely, and been doing what I've been doing. It helps me definitely my image, you know, around you know, I could say the world, because the CD was distributed around, you know, many states in Europe and Japan and also South America, and I got really good reviews from
I know they got terrific reviews. Yeah. Maneco, I know when you go back to Puerto Rico, you're a star now. So
that's the advantage of having a brother that's a great trumpet player and also my father. So, like most of the time that I go to Puerto Rico, I ended up playing the gig.
Right.
Especially covering for my brother. He's stuck. Like, I can't make that gig because I took another one and it pays more. Go cover that. I'm like, no, I don't want to play. I'm on vacation. But anyways, the thing that we have, like, as Latin players, you know, before Broadway, we used to travel a lot with salsa bands. So you do recordings, like, you know, I've done many recordings. I've won Grammys or whatever. So people in Latin America, you know, Colombia, Peru,
They follow that.
or Mexico, they follow that. They check on the
credits.
the credits of the recording and say, oh, this is Raul Agraz. So you go to those countries and they hear that, oh, Raul is coming to town. Let me see if I can take a lesson with him. So that's what happens every time we go to those places. Also, we both have home studios.
Right.
So I get call from Peru, can you put this the trumpets on this track, from Puerto Rico, you know, from anywhere, you know.
Yeah, everything changed now. We used to go to the studio. Now we have our own studio. So if somebody in Colombia wants to play trumpet, so they send me the track, and then I put the trumpets and send them back.
And then we exchange gigs. Like if I can't do a session, I tell the person, listen, I'm too busy this week, send it to Raul.
Yeah.
You know, even though we don't know that we're doing that to each other, but I know, you know,
It's a testament to you guys, and it should be a good lesson for all of us, is that you've adapted to what the new paradigm is.
Yeah.
So we talked about how the scene is shrinking, but this scene, it didn't exist before. So that now we have something in the plus ledger
Correct.
over
Exactly.
here. So the fact that you guys have adapted to that is speaks to your professionalism and smarts. I always get emails if I don't ask this, so I have to ask about equipment. Maneco, what horn are you playing, and mouthpiece and so forth?
well, I've been playing the same two mouthpieces for 20 years. When I play classical, I play a Bach 1B,
Okay.
symphonic chant, I think that's what they call it, 22, 25 or 25 and 22, I don't know. And then for commercial playing, I have a copy of a Bob Reeves 43.5S that Greg Black made me. And then my trumpets, I play the Bergeron Yamaha.
Yamaha. Okay.
Yeah.
What about your piccolo? What do you play?
Piccolo is Chilke P54. Is that what it- yeah, P54. On that I play a Stork 7P, the Vacchiano model.
How about yourself, Raul?
Well, as you know, I've been endorsed by Cannibal Music for many years, since when they started making the trumpets in Germany. I really love the trumpets. I still have a couple of trumpets at home. But for the past year, I come back to my back. I've been a back user since I started playing, and I don't know, there is something on the back that's a sound that I keeping my ear.
Sure.
So I just bought recently a Bach 37. That's a trumpet that I've been using recently for the most part of what I'm doing right now. I also have a Shire's trumpet, which is amazing, the Model A, and I love it. It's very similar to the Bach. So that's the reason why I kept the Shire's at the theater, and the 37 is the trumpet that I'm using for everything else. So, and you notice that I brought it for this session, and in the highest I brought 2 trumpets, and I kept the back. You notice that?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the classic industry standard, right? That's
I remember the past use all of when I met him. He used to bring 3 trumpets and a bunch
15
of
mouthpieces.
Yeah, and put all the mouthpieces in the stand and played. How did it sound? How did it sound? He said, you sound great on every mouthpiece and every trumpet. So I was getting to that point, and now I'm trying to just keep, with the same mouthpiece and the same trumpet for everything. So,
yeah, that's great. As we kind of wind down a little bit, are there 2 or 3 or however many actually that you like of your most proudest things that you've been a part of, you played on projects, whatever it might be? Maneco, why don't you go first on this one?
When I was a kid, I used to watch. There was a lot of TV shows in Puerto Rico that featured these great musicians. Years after, I'm there with them. Like for example, Raul. I used to listen to Raul a lot when I was in Puerto Rico when I was 18 or something like that. and now I play with him all the time. So that, other than playing with great artists, for me it's always playing with people that you admire, you know?
Sure.
Instead of saying, oh, J-Lo.
Yeah.
No, I admire Raul Agraz, and then I got to play with him, and, you know, I admire him even more, you know? So that's, for me, that's the satisfaction, you know, of playing with great musicians.
Thank you,
you know.
friend. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't pay him
Beautiful.
for saying that.
Well, I expect the check on the mail.
I'll take care of it when we get to the show tonight. Don't worry. But how about yourself, Raul? I know your resume is about as long as it can get, but
I don't know. I can say I'm very proud of my CD.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very proud of everything I've done. And, you know, when you go and you're trying to do your best every time you get called to do any session or any given situation, rehearsal or concert, you know, you're trying to do 100%. But I'm very proud of this CD that I produced myself and put together the band that I really wanted to be in the CD, and very happy with the sound that I got. I got in the CD, got really good reviews, and as you said, I got the Latin Grammy nomination, and that's pretty much proud of, you know, of this baby. That was a baby for me. First baby. At this point, I'm pre-producing a new one. I mean, it takes time.
of course,
Because
it takes a long time.
Yeah, it takes a long time, and I want it to be at the same level or probably
Sure.
in a better level than the last one.
I can, as a proud owner of Between Brothers, it's a fantastic CD, and go to raulagraz.com and check it out, pick it up, download it. It's well worth it. Some beautiful writing, great playing, and a whole range of amazing artists on that record. So we can't wait to hear the next one.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always ask is advice for young people that are getting into the profession, and your guys is very important, I think. With the political climate the way it is, we won't get into it, but we are kind of all on the same page with where things are. What advice do you have for young players that are outside the United States that look at you guys and say, "Wow, those guys made it in New York. I want to try to come to New York or Los Angeles or anywhere." You're going from your home country to someplace else. What advice do you have for them?
Just practice as much as you can, trying to be prepared for any given situation, for any style of music. Try to practice every style of music. Listen a lot of music, a lot of trumpet players, a lot of lead trumpet players. If you are focused on that, and if you want to play jazz, trying to learn the language well, and trying to prepare yourself as much as you can. If you wanted to, of course, learn the language, something that I didn't learn in Venezuela, I learned when I moved here. So my language is pretty much a street language, you know, a street. I could say
Gig language.
Yeah, exactly. Now, probably it's better as you went to the school here, and in my situation wasn't like that. So that's the best advice that I can give a young student. Just trying to prepare yourself as much as you can and be ready. You know, if you're gonna make the jump, then so if you prepare yourself to be the best, so you're gonna have the opportunity. And when you get the opportunity, when somebody gives you the opportunity, the chance, trying to implement everything that you prepare yourself, you know, in your early career. Yeah.
I think your level of, for both of you, your level of preparation comes through as soon as you play a scale. You can hear it, how prepared you are. And I think that's one of the great things about music, is that it does transcend borders. And when you sit down in a section and you play, both of you play the way you do, I don't care if you're from Venezuela or Moscow or Chile or Japan or wherever, it just feels good, and we're there to make music and to play. So I think part of your point is focus on all those particulars in the music, because that's what it's all going to come down to.
Exactly.
Maneco, I know you've got something to say about
For
this.
me, it's all about the passion you feel for something, you know. Like, I always wanted to be good at playing the trumpet. So I said, you know what, I have to leave. So even though when I came here, I couldn't speak English, you know, I said, you know what, my passion is so big for this that I need to improve that first, because the trumpet has never been a problem. It's been, you know, communication, the language. So, you know, when I came to Rutgers, I was in a class that it was 200 people. And you had, every week you had to do an oral presentation, you know. So imagine how scared I was. But the passion for the music, for trumpet is so much that I say, you know what, this is not going to stop me. So I kept going. I kept, you know, getting together with people, you know, that play great, and just follow that, you know. All the programs that we have in our countries, if you have the passion, you can't just surpass that, you know.
Totally.
Like, you'll find a way. If you really have the passion for it, you're going to find a way to do it, to make it happen, you know.
Well said. That's took the words right out of my mouth. That's great. You guys, thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome.
Thanks for having us.
What a pleasure.
Pleasure.
I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. These guys brought an incredible international flavor that we are looking to add more of all the time on Bone2Pick, and hearing their stories was really inspiring, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. And we will see all of you next time on Bone2Pick.